Roll call. Hidalgo County. City of Brownsville.
Present.
Cameron County. City of McAllen. City of Edinburgh. City of Mission. City of Harlingen. City of FAR. Starr County. City of San Benito. Cameron County RMA. Hidalgo County RMA. Valley Metro. Texas FAR District. Quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. On to number 3, public comments. We have no public comments. On to item number 4, action and discussion items. The first one is item A, approval of the minutes for October 30th, 2024. I'd like to take an action on this item if someone wishes to make a motion. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this item? If not, all those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries. On to item 4B, which is on the MPO special election. Mr. Medina.
Mr. Vice Chair, so in accordance to the bylaws is that since the Commissioner, Mr. Fuentes has stepped down, we need to call for a special election to nominate a new chair. I think at this time, if there's any nominations to the chairmanship.
Well, I have questions and I have concerns. If I'm not mistaken, we discussed this at the last meeting. Okay. Commissioner Fuentes is not stepping down. He's being replaced by another member of the court of Hidalgo County. The bylaws do not allow for the executive director to call for an election. Okay. Now, is the attorney here? There he is.
Yeah.
Good morning. We're on the item of the officer. At the last meeting, we discussed the reading of the bylaws and how there was not going to be a necessity for a new chairman other than a reappointment or a new appointment of the Hidalgo County representative. What concerns me is that the bylaws, the way it's referenced in the agenda item, is not what it says. The executive director does not have the authority to call for the election. In the event that Hidalgo County was no longer going to serve as chair, that'd be a different story. But I think we made it clear at the last meeting. So and I'm concerned that you didn't reach out to anybody, either the chairman, the former chairman, the incoming chair, or any board member, and ask or get some feedback after council made it clear that there was no need for an election. So I'm concerned why this item is on there and why the legwork wasn't done for it.
That was my finding, and I'll take responsibility for that. And so the way that I understood the feedback. And again, just Jose Castro for the record, the way that I understood the feedback was that there was a concept of the 2 years rotation between Hidalgo and Cameron counties, and the separate concept that the vice chair becomes the chair, and that there was a conflict between those two provisions. But if the way that the policy board wants to address it is just that Commissioner Torres steps into the Hidalgo County position, I think we end up with the same result.
Right.
And that just may require clarification by modifying the bylaws eventually.
Which is what I said at the last meeting.
Yes.
So what's the intent today then? Is it to have Mayor Cowan continue to serve, or to allow Commissioner Ellie to come in and continue to serve the remainder of the 1 year of Hidalgo County chair, which is the intent? That was the intent. Now, if for whatever reason Hidalgo County said we cannot serve as chair, then Mayor Cowan would rise. Then we'd have an election for vice chair. Of course, that would still create the issue of, at that point, my reading would be that Mayor Cowan's 2-year term would begin at that point as chair. But the conversation that we had last time, plus the reading of the bylaws, which led to the comment that I made, maybe we need to clarify it just to make sure going forward. But Hidalgo County is not renouncing its chairmanship. They're just changing its representative, which the cities and the counties do all the time. So it concerned me the way the agenda item was written, and especially after the initial, agenda was placed and questions were raised and it was still on there. But anyway, well, say, I think we just need to make that clear going forward, because I don't want to have any other issues or misunderstandings between the board and and management.
Yes, Judge.
So are we able to make a nomination or not? Or do we have an election or do we
But
proceed with the item?
it shouldn't not be an election. It should be
The appointment.
an appointment or nomination, but it's not an election, because Commissioner Torres is here.
Yeah.
And you are the Hidalgo County representative.
Well, just to move forward, I'd like to make a motion to nominate Commissioner Eli Torres step in as the new chair.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second on this item. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it, motion carries. And so at this stage, Commissioner Torres is the acting chair for the MPO, right? So I'll let you take over.
Thank you, Mayor.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much. I want to take a moment just to thank everyone for their voting in confidence. I look forward to working with everyone, collaborating with everyone across the region so that we can move forward and make our region really be and take it to where it needs to go. So again, thank you so much for the opportunity. And I look forward to working with you, Mr. Medina, and everyone across the entire Rio Grande Valley. So moving on to item 4C, discussion and action on fiscal year 24-25 United Planning Work Plan Amendment Number 4.
Good morning, Policy Board members. I'm here to present the next item, which is the fourth amendment to our UPWP, which is the Unified Planning Work Program. Federal Transit Authority has recently made some changes to how transit has to program their planning dollars. And now, because of that, it has to be in our UPWP. The city of McAllen requested for us to put 2 new tasks in our UPWP as shown above. Subtask 1.8 is for 120,000 to be placed so that they can open as the salary for a position for a transit planner for McAllen Metro. And the subtask 3.9 is also for a grant that they received for the transit oriented development. And they're asking to identify the $500,000 grant in there as well. So those are the 2 tasks that McAllen Metro asked for us to place in there as per FTA guidelines. And then the MPO as well is allocating $40,000 to task 3.5 for the performance-based planning. And this will allow staff to continue evaluating projects for performance measure matrix and stuff like that. And this is an action item.
Do I hear a motion to approve? There's been a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Same sign for those opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Moving on to item 4D, discussion and action on the 2026 UTP Category 2 project list. Someone from the FAR district?
Yes, good morning, everyone. Some of the staff is out in a conference this week. With a change of schedule, it was difficult for them to be here. However, I will be presenting on this particular item. I believe, there you go. There was a PowerPoint sent in. I know it's very difficult to read there. This projects are the projects that the FAR district is nominating for the 2026 UTP. There were several things that needed to be taken into consideration. I will start off by saying that our deadline to submit these projects was this past Friday, December the 6th. However, due to some conflicts in the scheduling, we were not able to meet. You all may recall we were supposed to meet on December the 4th. Here we are today. We did not miss our deadline. We did submit this project, and I'll start off by saying that although these projects have already been submitted, it is with the understanding that this MPO policy board is ultimately, we need your approval. So we submitted in order not to miss the deadline, but we wanted to have an opportunity, if you will, to be able to present these projects to you all so that you are in the know as to how this affects us. Like anything else, we have financial constraints that we have to meet. And what we're looking at here is the 4 years, right, as far as the construct authority. There are many, many moving parts to this whole process. One of the things that we take into consideration, if you will, is the actual balances that are available to us. We have had obviously an increase in cost due to basically inflation, right? The cost of doing business. And so with that increase in cost, many of our projects obviously are now a little bit more expensive. Our goal, number one priority, is projects that were fully funded in the 2025 UTP. We wanted to ensure we'd be able to deliver those projects, especially if they're in the first 4 years of the TIP, right? Projects that are ready to go to construction. And so that was step number one. Let's go ahead and make those projects fully funded. Step number two is identify a leveling effort. A leveling effort has been made at the statewide level. What does that mean? Throughout the year, the Department of Transportation, we let on average right around $1 billion. And so there are many, many large projects, if you will, throughout the entire state. And we try to level that off to be able to get basically a stable letting volume on a monthly basis. Some of the projects, and those projects are in blue, some of these projects we were asked to work with our MPOs and to work with our local contractors, if you will. And we actually delayed these projects or rescheduled them for 2 or 3 months afterwards. For example, if a project was scheduled to let in June of 2025, now we have it in September of 2026 as an example. So there was a 3-month delay. The benefit in doing that, it allows us to go into a new fiscal year. Our fiscal year at the state with TxDOT starts on September the 1st. So the projects that you see in blue are projects that are part of the overall leveling effort on a statewide basis. The items that you see in red are items or changes, if you will, for projects that have had a change in cost or a change as far as letting dates. And you can see there on the left-hand column there. Thank you. I appreciate that. My eyes are getting a little older. I should have brought my glasses. So the projects in blue are the ones that I just mentioned that we were asked to, as part of the leveling effort in 2026 and 2027. The projects in red, you can see that there was a change. For example, State Highway 495 in the Palmview area moved from 2026 to 2027. We took things into consideration as far as project development, project readiness, right-of-way utilities, and things of that nature. So anything that you see in red were actual changes that were made, if you will, to projects. If you can go to the next page, please. The area that's highlighted. Okay, in this whole effort, we took into account a total balance as far as the availability of funds. In that, we looked at a couple of projects that we don't have the capacity, the bottom line. We don't have the capacity to be able to put them into part of this plan. Those two projects, if you scroll a little bit to the left, if you don't mind, are FM 1732 in Cameron County and FM 1925 in northern Hidalgo County. Those two projects, by pushing them outside of the UTP years at this time, allowed us to be within the constraint. Okay, these projects we've started working on them. The financial constraint does not give us the ability at this time to be able to deliver the projects. If you scroll a little bit to the right, when we look at the overall summation, if you will, that is the value right there of $84 million that becomes available to be by removing these projects. And then these funds are redistributed to other projects that are further along in the development process. Okay. Next page, please. Develop authority. So we also took a look at projects in the later years of the UTP, 2030, I'm sorry, to 2035. These projects, if you will, the idea here is we have develop authority. Develop authority basically allows us to continue with the environmental and the schematic, and there is funding that's been allocated for these projects. These projects are here. There are two projects here that we had to remove because our develop authority capacity was going to be exceeded. That is State Highway 48 in Cameron County. The limits for that project are State Highway 4 to FM 511. That's an added capacity, raised median project, 6 lanes. There's a lot of right-of-way. There's a lot of utilities. There's a lot of challenges with that project. So what we decided to do is to push this project back until we have the proper develop authority to include it. In addition to that project, there's State Highway 364. That's La Homa Road in north of the Palmview area. Limits 2221 to 676. That project too was removed from the develop authority list. Next slide, please. If this one you want, yes, you want to be able to zoom in so we can look at the overall numbers. So in looking at these numbers, you see where we were at as far as the construct authority, 771 million. The category 2 authorized amount of 567 million approximately. The proposed request would be the $84 million. That was a shortfall that I circled in the previous slide to bring a total construct authority that's being proposed by the FAR district of 671 million. Develop authority numbers are previously 475. We have an authorization of 144. We're requesting 84.6 million to bring our total proposed category 2 of develop authority of 228. Total numbers for the UTP, 1.2. Construct authority, we have 730 million or so, proposing 169, which basically there's a delta of $900 million. When looking at these amounts, the estimated amount is $902.9 million. 900 million, you see at the top table, is what we're proposing. That'll give us approximately $2.7 million in capacity. Things change, estimates change, and so that gives us a little bit of a cushion. And the whole goal here is to be able to fund construct authority, develop authority for the UTP. Now, when you look at these numbers, some of you may be thinking, well, wait a minute, 1.2 million, what is the delta between 1.2 UTP total to the 900 million? So yes, there's a 346 delta. That delta are other funding categories. For example, category 4, urban mobility, category 12, commission discretion, develop authority, or any other funding to make up the $346 million. So this is what we're proposing to do as far as our 2026 request. This information has been submitted. If you can go on to the next slide, please, and then I'll answer any questions. So this is where we're at as far as the project timeline. We started developing the 2026 UTP. We were given authority to do that. Project call is in place right now. December the 6th was our deadline to submit candidate projects so the project scoring can take place. More information will be provided to all of us in the future Texas Transportation Commission meetings in January, February timeframe. As far as our actual allocation, right now we're working on projections. At that point, we will be given an opportunity. If there's a change in the projection for whatever reason, we will be given an opportunity to come back to the MPO policy board to make any necessary adjustments, whether it's projects that are being submitted, adjustments and estimates, and things of that nature. In the springtime, we'll go through the commission review, public involvement process in the summer, And then in August of 2025, we will have the actual UTP adoption that is required by the TAC. Said a lot. Let me pause and see if there might be any questions that I can answer for you.
Any questions? Discussion? Okay, so this is an action item, so go ahead and entertain a motion to,
Yeah.
Commissioner, can I
Oh,
have,
yes.
I'm sorry, can I ask one question?
Yes.
I just want to make sure and I'm understanding and prior experience. Obviously, the UTP is a fluid document. As things change, the reallocation or reallotment or reinstitution of some of these projects that are being removed can be brought once either the construction costs are reevaluated and/or funding sources or amounts are located.
That is exactly right. Every year, we go through the UTP adoption process where we can add, subtract, and things of that nature to ensure that the projects that are highest priority to this region are funded and developed, if you will, for delivery.
I raise that because you and I met on 1732 several months ago, and I know that it was a priority for you. And so it's, a little concerning, but
Yeah. Yes, Judge, I have talked with your staff to come up with a game plan to try and make the overall estimate reduced and within additional capacity we'll have next year.
Okay.
On 107 feet, that
Could be
cost.
107?
Yes, sir. From business to 81. Oops. Yeah, we just wanted to confirm that on the first page, page 2.
We could zoom in.
It's okay, I can understand the columns, but on the 107 from business 281 to I-69 Central.
Could you
Maybe
scroll
just
to
go to the right? That's the drainage improvements, correct?
Operation improvements, drainage
Operation-
improvements, and other? Yes.
And so that one, it shows 3.5 million of CAT requests. So that's the difference right now that is needed. And this approval will provide that additional funds.
Yeah, so any numbers that are in black are additional monies that are being requested to the various projects. Any numbers in red are monies that have been removed.
Got it.
We try to balance everything out, and then was a delta of 84 million.
So that's what,
Yeah, so
But
3.5
that
million
category-
additional is the request.
okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other discussion? Okay, so this is an action item. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion?
Second.
There's a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to item 4E. Take possible action on tax recommendation to announce a call for planning studies for inclusion in the fiscal year 2025 Unified Planning Work Program, Task 5, Special Studies.
Madam Chair, Michael Molina, one of the things that in reviewing our planning documents, we found that there is a balance in the UPWP for Task 5, which is special studies, in the ballpark about 77,000. In addition to this is that I've also have been briefed that we also have an additional $1.9 million that has not been programmed in the current UPWP. So if you remember, the UPWP is a 2-year program, and this is where we identify work activities for the MPO. So in my discussion with the board members at large, when I met with them, I understand that there's a need to identify specific items that are eligible through the PL funding in the UPWP. So for example, is that I have been understood that there's certain projects that could use special studies. So for example, in one of the discussions that I had, and this also includes the discussion I had with the federal partner, is that there's a tool out there that's called PEL. PEL stands for Planning and Environmental Linkages. This is a very powerful tool that anybody here can, request for funding in terms of trying to get a project accelerated. And so I think it's a very good tool that anybody here can look at it in terms of accelerating a project. The benefit of doing a PEL is that it allows you to move forward in investigating the environmental constraints of said project. These projects become very critical because we can capitalize on this constraint mapping that exists. So in the traditional sense is that if there's a body that goes out there and looks at a project, you don't get credit for all these environmental constraints. This is a document that can be utilized with any project that's within the MPO planning area. There is a lot of examples, and of course, in El Paso, we did one of these. And the project there in El Paso looked at about 100 square miles. The health study identified about $700 million worth of projects. So currently, right now, I would even say that maybe 3/4 of the projects that were identified are actually in construction now. So this is one of these tools that's out there. Of course, it could be used for transit. It could be used for any other planning study that is necessary. So the idea here is that if the board takes the tax recommendation, is that I would come back in January with a timeframe for the nomination.
Questions, further discussion? Hearing none. This is an action item. Do we have a motion? Okay, we have a motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to item 4F, approval for RGVMPO staff to start coordinating the RGVMPO policy board retreat.
Madam Chair, one of the other items that it's my understanding that's been a practice here with the MPO is also to have a retreat for the policy board. So in reviewing past documentation, I understand that there's a level of training that has, been a function of this retreat. So the idea here is to identify certain things that board members have told me and when I met with them. For example, one of them is the cradle to grave process. So the cradle to grave is that it identifies how a project is nominated, developed, and ultimately constructed. And so the idea here is to incorporate the life cycle costs of those things. So this would be one of the training components. If you all direct us to start looking at available dates, and we'll come back to the policy board to inform them.
Okay, any discussion? All right, so this is an action item. Do we have a motion? Have a motion?
So move.
Second, okay. So we have a motion, a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, moving on to item 4G, discussion and approval to direct the RGVMPO Executive Director to provide recommendation on policy developments. Medina?
Madam Chair, again, Michael Medina, one of the things here that I have given the policy board members here, and it's a printout, is just some observations in terms of developing policies or state of practice. So for example, in terms of state of practice, one of the things that I would highly recommend and encourage is that we develop a project request form. That way we as the MPO can evaluate a project and the benefits of said project as it moves towards the development of the long range plan. Also with this is that we would also want to identify a mechanism to have a call for projects. And so at any given point, we can have a pool of projects that can be nominated to the MPO. However, but as it was demonstrated through, the district right now is that there's very specific programs that have characteristics for eligibility. So the idea here is that we want to start talking about a project and not necessarily a project and its funding component. By having a call for projects and having a project request form, it would allow us to understand the development of said project. The other thing that I also want to point out is that how we track projects. So one of the recommendations here that we would bring back, and of course, this is all working with the Technical Advisory Committee, is to have a project selection process, but also how we track that. So here we would come back every quarter to report on the status of said project. There are examples out there, best practices that I've also been involved in, that we would track a project in terms as it moves through time. Preliminary engineering, right-of-way, things of that nature. I think these are very important tools to ensure that this policy board understands the progression of said project, because there are projects that exist today that are active. However, they're not in any of the planning documents. So that means that the project has let. So that there has to be a mechanism for us to come back to the policy board to identify if there's some issues. So again, these are just some examples, and then we'll come back with some type of programming for the policy board through TAC to make recommendations for implementation.
Any discussion? Again, this is a,
Just a quick question. Those are Robert Lozano, Hidalgo County RMA. Good morning, everyone. One of the new guys. That recommendation, I guess, implies that none of that is presently being done?
So it is my observation that there are some mechanisms in place, but they're tied to specific funding categories, correct? And so what happens here is that we are looking at a project as it relates to funding. And I'll use the TASO, which is, active transportation type projects. We are looking at projects from a silo perspective. We just report on that. A project has validity in terms of meeting the federal requirements. Funding is just one component of that. So in order to get, as they say, a project shovel ready, there's many mechanisms that have to go through. And so the idea here is that the very first thing is that the project has to be in the MTP, which is the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. With time, then it moves into the short range plan, which is a transportation improvement program. This is where the real money's at, the first 4 years. Once it's in the tip, then you can have some type of authority. You would sign an agreement with TxDOT for said project to move forward. So it's between these nomination components that it does get identified in relationship right now in terms of funding. So in my observation and my experience is that we're actually kind of doing it backwards. What we need to understand is the validity of the project, where the project is in terms of it being able to move into the MTP, then into the tip, so that way we have the appropriate funding. So with all this said is that my understanding is that we tend to load the tip in terms of projects. I call this the baked potato. So we try to make sure that the baked potato is there and then we keep on stuffing it. And what happens is that if we don't have the appropriate funding in that fiscal year, projects get moved out. We call this project slippage. The reality of all this is that we need to make sure that if a project is nominated, moving forward, that we identify the true validity of the status of the project. So in short, there are observations that we come back and we report to the policy board, but it's a functionality of funding components. So we need to define the project as a whole.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to follow up on that question. And I know this is just being developed and I think it's a good thing, but is it just going to be open-ended to be submitted at any time during the year, or is it going to be a special call, for projects, let's say at the beginning of fiscal year?
Sure.
Yeah.
So essentially a project call can happen at any given time. The normal cycle is that we develop it through the MTP, then it gets moved through the tip. So when we look at how the process works is that our federal partners, to include the state, is that your project should be in the MTP, correct? And if money comes in, for example, through the development of the UTP, if there's capacity, then projects get moved into the appropriate year. So the MTP is at a minimum 20 years. The UTP is 10 years. So if your project is in the 11th year, there is a probability that it can move forward because a new balance is in the UTP. The same thing is that if you're just outside the tip on year 5, it could also move forward. So it becomes a continuous component in terms of a call for projects. The idea here is that we would set the footprint or the parameter to accelerate said project.
any further discussion? Okay, this is an action item. Do we have a motion to approve? Have a motion?
I,
We have a
uh,
motion, second. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 5, presentation and reports. 5A, TxDOT project status report.
For the FARI office, there'll be three offices presenting. It will be the FARI office, home area office, and the manual area office. For Hidalgo County, the following projects for FM. Next slide, please. Yes, for this project FM 1425. This project is the limits of this project is from Business 83 to State Highway 107. The scope of the project is the rehabilitation of an existing roadway. The contractor Soul Construction has of right now completed about 33%, and the estimated completion date will be that of February 2026. Next slide, please. As you can see, this is looking north. The contractor Soul Construction is already working between Mount 11 North and Mount 12 North, and it's already installed FlexPace and GeoGrid on the roadway. Next slide, please. And as you can see on this one, this is looking south on FM 1425. The contractor has already installed GeoGrid on top of the FlexPace, and this is a section between mile 11 and mile 12 north. Next slide, please. As for this project, FM 676 West, the limits of this project is State Highway 364 to State Highway 107. The scope of the project is reconstruction and winding of an existing roadway. The contractor, Texas Cordia Construction, is right now around 65% complete, and the estimated completion date will be that of September 2025. Next slide, please. As you can see on the next slide, this is looking south. The contractor has completed paving on the asphalt section on the north side of Prosper Road to FM 676. Next slide. And as you can see on the next one, the contractor has been installing sidewalk on the north side of FM 676 between Hawaii Street and State Highway 107. Next slide. For our next project, that's FM 676 East. The limits of this project is from Taylor Road to FM 2220. The scope of the work is reconstruction and widening of an existing roadway. The contractor, Texas Cordia Construction, is right now about 12% complete, and the estimated completion date would be that of June 2026. Next slide. As you can see, this is looking south. This is the new construction, the irrigation siphon structure. This structure has replaced the existing bridge structure that was there before construction started. Next slide, please. And this is looking south between Taylor Road and Benson Road. And the contractor, Texas Cordia Construction, is working on the execution of the proposed outfall for Hidalgo County Drainage District number 1.
Good morning. My name is Rene Davila, project engineer for TxDOT for the San Benito area office. I'll be presenting project updates for Cameron County. Project number 1, I-69 round reversal. This project is located in Harlingen, Texas, from Industrial Boulevard to Loop 499. The scope of this project is to do a round reversal going southbound and northbound. Contractor is Foremost Paving. We are currently at 89% complete, and the estimated completion date is January 2025. Next slide. So this is the new on-ramp going southbound. The contractor Foremost Paving completed the final overlay operations early this month. And as of today, both on-ramp and off-ramp going southbound have been completed and open up to traffic. This is the southbound frontage road from Loop 499 to Wilson Road. As of today, this area has also been completed. A contract will be on overlaid from Loop 499 to Wilson, as mentioned. The contractor right now is currently working on installing small signs, estimated to be completed by the end of the year. Next project, SH4, concrete pavement project in Brownsville, Texas. This is from I-69 to SH48. The scope of this work is to rehabilitate the existing roadway. Contractor is Basilico Civil, currently at 39% complete, and the estimated completion date is March of 2026. So the contractor is currently working on phase 1, step 1, which is the construction from I-69E to Taft Street on the south side of the roadway. The concrete pavement has been completed, and they are currently working on a concrete sidewalk and concrete driveways, which is expected to be completed before the end of the holiday, before the Christmas break. This is phase 2, step 1, which is the construction from Porter High School to SH48. The contractor completed the milling operations early this month, And actually today they started a drainage improvements in the area with a proposed 16-inch RCP along SH4. With that, I conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Hey, good morning. I'm Emma, representing the Romari office. For this first project, this one's located on US 83. It's from Margarita Road all the way to Loma Blanca. It's for a divided highway. Currently, the project, they're working on prep right away, and they started on phase 2 of prep right away also to combine those phases. The next project is, here they're working on embankment on the new roadway. They haven't touched the existing roadway, so traffic hasn't been impacted here. The second one is a Super 2 on FM 755 from FM 1017 to 2294. And currently the contractor worked on an intersection, and they will be continuing on milling and moving forward with the project, as you can see on the next slide. So here they were paving an intersection and they already set up barrier in this area.
Good morning. My name is Atilio Garza. I'm one of the project managers for the central design section in the FAR district for TxDOT. I'm here to present two of our projects. The first one is US 21 military. The limits are from FM 732 to 0.5 miles west of 1577. This project, we have a completed schematic. It's environmentally cleared. All the right-of-way has been acquired. So we're good with that. And the PS&E is also at 100% completed. The only thing is we're still waiting for the utilities to be cleared. So we have the coordination, coordinating with that as we speak. It has a letting of January 2026. Next slide, please. The next project, it's in Hidalgo County. It's SH 107 Conway. The limits from this one is from SH 495 to FM 1924. We have a completed schematic. It's environmentally cleared. There was no need to acquire any right-of-way for this project. The utilities are cleared and the PS&E is also completed. This one has a September 2025 letting. Any questions? Thank you.
Okay, that was presentation and reports. Moving on to item 6, other business, old or new.
I have a question again. I'm just, I guess, curious. Would it be a practice or not, much like what TxDOT is doing, that the RMAs give a report or present at the MPO meeting?
So it is my observation that they do that. And so if they didn't make a report today, I mean, it's a standing item from what I understand.
It's
So they do it quarterly is what I'm being told.
Okay, it's
Right.
quarterly.
Right. So the idea here, and this is a very perfect example of what TxDOT is doing, is that it advises us on the development of said project. One of the things that we want to do as it relates to the project tracking is to understand those percentages, correct? So if we come back and report on a quarterly basis and somebody says, you know, we're acquiring utility. And so if we're doing a utility relocation, we want to understand that in the first quarter, they're at 10%. And then when we do the next quarter is 40%. We want to understand the progression. We don't want to see anything that slips away, right? So the idea is that as we examine these projects, we're going to be meeting with the set sponsoring agency along with the district to really get a good snapshot to make sure that these projects are moving forward. The same would be with the RMA. So I think that the region collectively does do a very good job in informing the policy board of where the projects are at. But we need to understand where the percentages are in its relationship to that development.
Okay,
Madam
thanks.
Chair, let me address, this is the first time, and it may be because we're having a special meeting, but every meeting the RMAs have presented, and it's not been on a quarterly basis. One. Okay, now I don't know if that's a policy change that you wanted to implement, okay. Well, I'm pretty sure that they're at every meeting, maybe, there may be one or two where the one or two doesn't present, but I'm pretty sure that they do present. My point being, number one, is that we continue that practice.
Yeah.
Number one, and two, the point you're making about project, that's, I think that's well and good, and normally they do that. I know Eric was here, and Ramon was here earlier, so they do report.
Mhm.
They do report.
Yeah.
So, I just want to
Okay.
clarify that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, again, first time, I probably should have been aware of what the procedures are. I did find it, unsettling, if you would, that there wouldn't be an RMA, presentation. Certainly, the real point here is, as chair, I just want to make it clear, staff has my number. We want to collaborate. We want to, get up to speed, present, and, you know, be part of the overall, objective here. And that's really where I was going with the comment. Like I said, I'll get up to speed. Personally, I think a presentation each time that there's a meeting wouldn't be a bad thing, but, that's up to y'all. That's it. Okay,
This is
thank you.
first time.
Just a real quick comment, just to try and put a bow on this. We got to a point during this past year where our meetings were becoming very lengthy. We had a general discussion of this policy board about doing them quarterly to help expedite. We had 3 or 4 meetings in a row where the presentations were not even done because of the timing issue. I think the presentations are submitted and we all have access to those presentations. So I just want to clarify, do we want to proceed with having them on a monthly basis or on a quarterly basis?
Well, from my perspective, I think that should be a board decision, number one, and number two, I understand, I agree that sometimes the meetings have gotten long, but if it's the chairman at that point saying, you know what, we'll take up the report or ask the individual to shorten it, that's up to the chair or whatever, but it's been on there and, yeah, I think that should continue.
I also wanted to just share something. As you well know, the RGVMPO went through an audit, for lack of better words, an audit through the Federal Highway Administration. I was able to attend the public comment and listen in on that. And then the next day, I was also here once they got the report card. And I just want to congratulate the RGVMPO for a wonderful audit, as we may say. Mr. Medina, thank you for your leadership, and also the policy council members that were present and gave the interviews. Again, there was great information, room for growth, opportunity for growth, but at the end of the day, I believe, came out with flying colors. So again, I want to congratulate the RGVMPO for doing a great job.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And one of the things here is that in January, we'll bring the draft report that the FHWA and the FTA team has, given us. And along with that, it'll be also a schedule for implementation, because a lot of these things that they identified are really a functionality of development of the long-range plan. And so we will have due dates and things that are going to run in parallel to the development of said plan. And so I would want to also express that in my entire experience, I have never seen where the federal partners come in and give such great, recognition to the MPO staff. So I helped a little bit. I didn't help a lot. And I think that, the group that you all have here should be extremely proud of what they've done and be recognized for that effort.
Thank you. Okay, so there's nothing else. We move on to item 7, adjournment. We have a motion? Second? There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Happy holidays, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. And we look forward to our next meeting. Thank you. You need it in blue?